Something you might be struggling with is creating a recording space or finding a space that you can record in that you're happy with. A place that you like the look of, a place that you're happy to show on camera, and somewhere that you feel like you look professional. Now, the thing is, you don't necessarily need to worry too much about it at the start because your content is the main thing and the recording space is just dressing. It's just extra to make you look that little bit more professional or whatever it is you're trying to achieve. So I wouldn't worry too much about it at the start. But if you do want to improve it, I'm going to show you exactly how I created mine, because I had a few comments recently from people saying that they like my recording space. And so I thought I could do a video for you guys and show you the realities, the real struggles, because what you often see on YouTube, especially from bigger creators, is not representative of reality. It's edited, it's lit in a certain way, you know, everything is done to make it look better than it is. And don't forget that those people also have bigger budgets probably, they have more time invested in this, and they maybe even have interior designers, and many of them go and buy a separate place, like an apartment, and they set that up just as a studio. Now we don't all have that luxury, of course, so I'm going to show you where I record, which is basically a storage room, and how it isn't ideal, and I'm going to show you all the imperfections and all the stuff that you don't see probably on camera. And I'm going to show you how I went from basically a white wall to what I have now. And it's very simple, more simple than you would think. So let's start off by showing you something here. So this is an unrenovated room in my house. It's the living room. It's quite big, as you can see. But what I want to show you is a normal ceiling height, right? If I reach up, I can touch the ceiling in here and without really struggling too much. Now, why is that important? Well, if I go into my studio here and I try and touch the ceiling, it's pretty close, right? What's the problem with this low ceiling height? Well, firstly, this room is not supposed to be a room. It's supposed to be, let me move that chair out of the way. It's supposed to be a storage cupboard. So the ceiling is really low. The window doesn't open and it's huge. And the only ventilation is right up in the corner over there at the back side, where you've got a vent, which is a passive vent, so it doesn't draw in or push out air through any mechanical means. It's just a natural vent. So that is literally the only way you get air into this room, or this door. Now, why is that a problem? Because firstly, it gets hot and it's uncomfortable. Secondly, heat makes you sweat, which looks bad on video. Third, many electronic devices don't do well with heat. Now, your laptop will sound terrible if it's too hot, most likely. And also certain cameras, even, you know, some of the really popular ones like Sony cameras that people use for videos, they will actually overheat and turn off. Now they can do that after just a few minutes of recording sometimes, especially if your room's too hot. So this room is not ideal from a heat perspective. Now I live in Sweden, it's not terribly hot outside most of the time, except, you know, in the summer it can be warm. So it's not a massive problem, but it does get hot very quickly when there's no air coming in or out really, and if I shut the door. Because all the devices heat up and they in turn then start churning out more heat, which heats up things even more, and then that heats up me, and it's not a good combination. So you need to think a little bit about that type of thing, because if you're thinking about recording space, you know, you take a small cupboard or whatever, have you thought about those type of things? Okay. The other thing with a small room is sound. Sound is quite bad when it bounces around so much. So I'm going to show you how I've done a complete bod's job to fix that. But let's go in a little bit, because first I'll show you that this is the wall that I sit in front, and I'll do that in a minute so you can see again. This is the wall I sit in front to film my videos. What I've done in here is I got some paint, and you can see, I don't know if you can make out these bad imperfections in this room. It's basically the people that were here before did a bad job with plasterboard and I just painted over it. Because I'd have had to get the whole thing redone otherwise, and I just wasn't going to spend the money on that. Because this used to be an office slash man cave, I guess you could call it, and I turned it into my studio. So this was old paint left over from my son's renovation of his room. I wanted a dark background. I'd seen a lot of other YouTubers that I liked the look of their set, if you want to call it that. So I basically took inspiration from them and wanted a dark background. So he already had that in place and spare paint left over. So I used that paint to paint this wall. So I basically did it for free. Now in Sweden, you can often get free paint from people because once they've used up the paint, you know, and they've finished their project, they've got a bunch of leftover paint they don't want. So you can often go around and just collect it for free. So you can probably do this very cheaply, but anyway, paint's not massively expensive. So if you just paint one wall and you're in front of it, that's enough. Now these shelves used to be wood. I've painted them with the same paint that I used on the wall. I didn't do a great job and it was very tedious doing it because there's so many ridges and stuff that you need to paint inside. I did it one time, one coat, and I gave up after that, and it looks fine. You can't tell really from, there's a lot of imperfections, but you can't tell when I sit there and I record my videos. I've literally thrown some random stuff onto these shelves, didn't really think about it. It was just random stuff that we had lying around the house in drawers and things that weren't being used, so I just picked some of it up, and some of my different things, a bit of work memorabilia and things like that down here. But yeah, it's just stuff, right? Just background stuff. It's not really important what it is, it's just to have something in the background. Let me sit down and then I can show you better the rest of the stuff. All right, so down in this corner, what is that, you might be asking yourself? What have you done here? Okay, I'll tell you. These are just basically cushions, a bit of foam that I got from a storage box, a pillow, and an old mattress from one of my kids' travel cots when they were small. And that is what I have used to basically dampen the sound, because there's a lot of echo, like I said, a lot of, let me put you down over here. There's a lot of echo. So I've just basically created my own version of a bass trap. Now, the thing with that is, it doesn't look pretty, but you guys can't see it. So it doesn't matter. Okay, this is basically what you see. Now I've got the wide angle lens on here at the moment. I'm going to keep that on for a bit because I want to be able to show you a little bit easier some of the stuff that's lying around. But that is not pretty, but you guys don't see it. I have to put up with it, of course, but you guys don't. So, you know, the reality you see is more like what you're seeing here now, and it's not quite because I've got different camera settings and stuff, but this is more like the reality of what you see in my studio or on my videos. So, you know, it doesn't have to be ideal, because people aren't going to be able to see, hopefully, a lot of the imperfections that you have. Now, I'm not editing the audio for this video. I'm going to leave it as it is because I want you to hear the sort of, you know, maybe you can hear the computer fans, maybe you can hear the echo and stuff like that, which I normally take away. And to do that, I use AI software called Adobe Podcast. I'm not affiliated with them, I'm not sponsored by them, but I do think it's brilliant. So I'm going to leave a description in the a link in the description, sorry, for that. Basically what it does, you drop your file in, it removes all the background noise and all the stuff for you, plosives, which are the P's, you know, the popping sounds when you say P and B sounds. It does everything, and there's no compression or EQ or anything you need to do yourself. It will take care of the whole lot. So that's what I use for my audio. I'm not using that today because I'm doing this unedited audio so you can hear the reality of my situation and probably hear the difference between this and how it sounds normally. Okay, so let's think a bit about lighting then, because audio, well, let's stick with the audio for a second then. So let me move that out of the way. Here is the DJI Mic 2, which I always record on when I'm on the move, and that's why I'm doing that today, because I'm walking around. But what I normally do, because this picks up a lot of background noise, particularly echo and stuff, rather than edit it out afterwards, what I often do is I want to get a better sound coming in. So to do that in this office, I have started using my Rode Podcaster mic instead. And I use that because when you talk into it, it's very directional and it cuts out a lot of the background noise that you would normally get. So this is what you'll hear me talking on when I'm sitting in the studio most of the time. When I'm out and about doing my walk and talks and that type of thing, then I'm always on the DJI Mic 2. What I do with this is I push it down and I have it out of sight, down in front of me on the desk, and then it's about that far from my mouth, which is perfect. So when I'm sitting here talking like this, I'm I'm talking to you and I'm talking into that. I like the fact you can't see it. Some people have their mics, you know, up here and stuff, but I don't really like to see it in the shot. I think it looks, you know, it doesn't add to the cozy feel that I'm trying to, you know, the more intimate feel that we're just having a conversation. With a mic in the way, you're always reminded this is a video. So I prefer not to have that. It's not a problem, I think, but you know, for some people, but for me, I just don't like it. It's on a arm, as you can see, which is attached to my desk over here by just a clamp, basically. So that's that. Excuse me. Yeah, so that's the audio, basically. 2 mics for different uses and Adobe Podcast for the editing. Now, Adobe Podcast, by the way, is also, there's a free version that you can use, so do check it out because I would recommend it. Now, what about lighting? So lighting is something that I'm no expert on, but I can give you a sort of lighting 101 if you want, which might improve the way you do things. So let's talk about the principles first. So the first thing you want to think about having is, let me take this lens off now, because then you can see that's more like what you normally see, okay, without the wide angle lens. Anyway, lighting, the principles mainly are, there's 3 main things you need to think about. The first one is some sort of key light. A key light is the main light, if you like, and that will be something like that's often off at a sort of 45-degree angle from you and often above you, and it shines down onto you from one particular side. And you can see now that the window is creating some light from on this side of my face, and so that's kind of acting as a key light. So you can use, of course, daylight for your entire lighting setup if you have that option. In here I don't really have the setup to use the daylight that effectively, so I use artificial light. Now, artificial light, you can use whatever you have, but it won't look that great if you use, you know, normal ceiling lights and things. Now you can do it, but you won't achieve the best look. So if you want to achieve a better look, you need to use artificial light that's meant for the purpose of, you know, lighting a video. So it's not complicated, but for a key light, you want to have something like this. Now this is a little Neewer panel. You can see how big it is. This one is good enough for in here, and I'll show you in a minute how I use it. But what this has different than other lights is it has some settings on the back here for brightness and basically like the color of the light. So it goes all the way from, let me turn it on, it goes all the way from a daylight setting, which is 5,200 kelvins. That's roughly a daylight setting. Or it goes to a warmer, more yellow gold type setting. And the brightness I have on 50%. So this is what I use as my key light. And the key light is the light that shines up on you from here. This is where I have mine. And it shines down and it lights one side of your face and creates shadow on the other side. Now I've got the settings different here. If I push on this little ND filter to my camera, you might see a bit more what it's normally like. An ND filter is basically a little set of sunglasses for your camera. So I'm going to put this one on, just adjust the settings. Now I don't normally use an ND filter for my videos. Let me just, I've got to change this, the angle here. I don't usually use an ND filter for the videos, but it's kind of I use the settings on the camera normally, but I don't want to change them because I want you to see everything in this video, at least up until now. So the ND filter kind of creates a similar effect where it's darkened down everything around me, right? Because it's like sunglasses. So now you can see me a bit more how you'll see me in my actual videos. And that key light now you can probably see is lighting one side of my face and it's got the shadow. That's the first part. Okay, so you need some sort of key light. Now you could also use something like the large panel up there which you can see is much bigger than the other key light. That's an Elgato key light, and I don't generally use that because I just don't need it in here. It's too big. It's not necessary, but it depends on the effect you want to create. So that key light is literally the key to everything, because that is doing the majority of the work in this lighting setup. Now the second type of light you might need is a fill light, and now I could use that, the sunlight or the Elgato one there, as a fill light. Let me turn it on a second and I can show you how it looks. 1 second. So I don't know if you can see the subtle difference. I'm turning it on, off, on, off. It just fills in a little bit of the shadow on my face when it's on, but I don't need it. So a fill light is useful, but not necessarily. If you want to create a certain look like the one I'm creating here. Now the third type of light, so we've got the key light, the fill light, and then we've got what we call a hair light. And a hair light normally goes behind you and lights up the background and shines sort of back onto you so that you can stand out from the background. I have these two small lamps and I basically use them as hair lights. Now they don't do a great deal in the background because they're not that strong. They do enough just to make me stand out from the background. That is it. So 3 types of light. I don't need more than this single little key light. And where is that attached? It's basically sitting on the back of my monitor. It just rests on there. I don't know if you can see that. It rests on there, and that is how I create the effect that I have here. Let me take this ND filter off again. It's very hard to get them on and off. Give me a second. There we go. You can see the difference now in the light just from taking that set of sunglasses off. But you can do the same thing with the camera settings. I'm not going to go into that because that's too technical for this video, and I'm not an expert in that anyway. But I usually just darken down the levels in the camera so that it creates that same effect you just saw with the sunglasses, basically. What else? Sometimes you'll see a background effect on some people's videos, and that's called bokeh. And basically what that is a blurred background. And that's created from the camera and the lens that you're using. This DJI Pocket 3 is not good for that. It's the sensor inside basically is too small. It can't really create that effect. It does have a portrait mode that will create that effect, but it obviously does a portrait shot, and I don't want that. I want the widescreen shot for my videos. So for that, this camera is not good. So that's one thing I would improve in the future, is trying to get that more blurred background effect. But I kind of recreate it by darkening it instead. Another thing you can use if you have lights and they're not adjustable is something like this, which is a diffuser panel. These lights have them built in already onto the actual screen of the light, but you can see when I put it in front of that lamp there that it softens the light down a lot compared to how it normally is there. And what that does is just it smooths out the light and makes it more or less harsh on your face. So that's something you can definitely consider doing for your videos if you need it, especially if you've got lights that you can't adjust. What other equipment do I use? Well, at the moment, the camera that you're looking at basically sits on a tripod similar to this one, which is a Joby GorillaPod, and it's a flexible tripod with flexible legs. You can wrap it around trees and stuff and use it there. This is actually my teleprompter. I'll put a link to all this stuff in the description if you want to check them out. But this is not built for the Pocket 3, but it does work with the Pocket 3 just about. You have the teleprompter inside at the back here looking through, and your phone here reflecting the text onto the screen. I use this sometimes for my videos because it helps with very detailed videos and it helps you not miss stuff. So a teleprompter is actually a really useful tool, and this was about, I don't know, 40 bucks, 50 bucks maybe, something like that. Comes with a remote and all this other stuff, and its own little tripod actually as well. It's very useful to have, I think. but not required. What else? I have various other tripods slash selfie sticks, you know, that you can expand here to stand up places. If I'm filming outside and I want to have a still camera, you know, and I also have, this one's really useful. This is called a small rig magic arm. Basically everything's tight. You undo this, everything moves. And as soon as you tighten that up again, nothing moves again. You can use this as a selfie stick. You can use it clamped onto your desk, onto a tree branch. This is one of the most versatile pieces of kit I have. I was actually thinking about doing a review video of this because it is so good. Again, not sponsored by any of these people. I'm just showing you the stuff so you can see. I mean, other than that, I have various bits of and pieces of, you know, phone holders and stuff like that. I don't use my phone to record, but if I did, I could use these type of phone holders. Let me show you. This type of thing on a tripod, and I can't open it. And that is basically just all you need, you know. You attach your phone into there and you attach that to a tripod and you're good to go. You can attach it to this, for example, on there. And that is really all you need, you know, to get started. So there really isn't that much more to it than that. That is how I set up my stuff. That is how I created the backdrop that I created. You've seen it's not far from perfect, but it's good enough. And that's all you really need. And I want you to remember that, you know, you don't have to recreate a, you know, Hollywood studio, especially when you first started. And, you know, you don't need to have everything perfect straight away. You can strive for perfection as you go along. You don't need to start there. So just film wherever it is that you have, whether it's in your car, it's outside, it's in, you know, a storage cupboard like me. Just film where you need to and don't worry about it, because the content is what matters, not the place that you're recording it in. Hope that video has been helpful. If it has, leave me a like, a comment, and subscribe to the channel, whatever. If you've got any questions, let me know. I'm happy to answer anything. If I've missed anything, which I'm sure I have, because I'm just doing this off, you know, my own memory, then let me know, and I'm happy to answer anything you guys want to know. All right, that's about it. Take care, guys. Thanks for watching.